Okay. So when I started to say, well, welcome to our live stream. There'll be people joining throughout, I have no doubt. Um, what I started to say, Hannah, is that this, as we're watching the children um, grow, as you've been doing, and to see your daughter now, um, you become so aware of how who they are is impacted by what you model as a parent and a teacher. You see their curiosity, you see their engagement, you see their will. All of those aspects are not academic. They are, in fact, people, that's why I entitled this Everyone Homeschools, because people say, oh, I don't have time to homeschool, or I'm not trained as a teacher, I can't homeschool. And I try and remind them, you are homeschooling. Every interaction you have with your children is an aspect of the homeschooling. And so I was in Hawaii last month, and actually in Hana, which is, named after you, I think, but not sure. And I was at a beach for locals, and I was watching this man, father, with a young one on a surfboard. By young, I mean probably 16 to 18 months, right there. And he had him on a surfboard, running through the waves, running all around, and then kind of catching a whitewater wave. And I was watching this little boy so thrilled to have this connection with his father and with the ocean. I had to go meet him. And he was such an amazing man. He is a professional, not surfer, but a canoe racer or something. He was born in Hana, lived there, and then met his wife in Tahiti when he was competing. They had children. Now they're back living in Hana. And she was there too, um, almost ready, very pregnant, ready to have their next baby. And she was in the water watching them, and it was this whole family thing. She was doing her steps, and he was completely active with this. And I went up to meet him and and to let him know I was really appreciating his homeschooling. And he looked at, so what do you mean? And I said, you are connecting your child with nature in such a powerful way, one that is so natural for you. He's coming into the ocean without fear, deep love and appreciation for your engagement. And he's barely talking, and he already knows this. And I was just struck by how powerful I saw through my own empathic nature this experience with this little boy. So that's how I wanted to introduce this concept of everyone, because he didn't even consider himself homeschooling, but he was. He is. And every interaction we have with our children is one that impacts them. And one of the hesitations I had with presenting this is that many parents find that a bit of, I guess, tentativeness and almost fear and apprehension that everything that they say or do with their child is going to be impacting them. So they become worried. And so I was a little concerned about how I might present this. I don't want parents to be worried, but it is a responsibility, but it's something that the children will always accept and not really judge you for. You're always going to be doing your best, just recognizing that what you bring and what you model with your own engagement with the world is a far more powerful experience for the child than any academic subject that you're going to be teaching. So that's how I wanted to begin, if that makes sense to you. Any thoughts or questions?
I'll say that maybe it's because there's so much parenting and homeschooling that's the part that's resonating with the the raising of the children, and the academics is all the secondary things that are happening in homeschooling. It's really the environment that you were just saying, that yes, all of us are parenting. We're all raising our children, whether we are recognizing those effects on our children or not, it's still happening one way or another. And homeschooling is an extension of that. And it's predominantly parenting, as much as education in a classroom setting is so much about, quote unquote, classroom management. I feel like it's the same thing.
Yeah, you're right. It is parenting, but I'm dividing, and this is one of the things that I used to speak about when I was a Waldorf classroom teacher. It's how I actually, now that I think about it, it's how I became inspired to move into homeschooling. I remember being a first grade teacher in Boulder, in Colorado, at the Shining Mountain, and um, I had all of these parents were waiting at 3 o'clock to receive their children after sending them into the classroom. And they hung on every word that I would speak about what happened with their children during the day. And I was talking about the art that we were creating, the songs we were singing, the stories we were telling, the drama, all of it, and they couldn't get enough. And it occurred to me at that time that, wow, they are engaged, the parenting aspect that they're engaged with is merely maintenance, feeding, clothing, cleaning, discipline, rhythmic, all important things. But if that's all you get, and then you deliver to me as the classroom teacher, somebody that is a stranger to your child, and I'm the one that gets to have those aha experiences with them every single day, you're denied the most powerful aspect of having children is to engage with them, building a bridge to the world, watching them become enlivened by what they're experiencing. Your ability to not only lead them into that world, but then to help guide them based upon your knowledge of who they are is so precious and something that can't be replicated in a school. So most people consider, to your point, Hannah, that parenting is the maintenance part, making sure they're well fed, well clothed, slept, and obviously, cared for when they're ill. Those things are all important. But parenting needs to be enlarged to understand that even if you send your child to school, every interaction you have with them is part of their education. And so you are, as Rahima said, you are your child's first teacher. And that doesn't stop when you send them to school, or if you are focusing on live education and Waldorf subjects and feel that that's the most important thing you're doing. It's important, but it's always a vehicle for all the more important things you're doing that we're going to talk about today. Does that make sense? Yeah. So Catherine, were you going to say, did you want to say something? No? Okay. One of the areas that I'm most inspired right now, and it has been, as I was mentioning with Hannah, that I was so grateful to be able to be having a class with her youngest in it at now 14. I'm doing this teen group, and having known her since she was tiny, I get so enlivened by what the needs of the children are as they move into their adolescence. Um, and so what that has been a catalyst for me to bring what I'm going to bring right now. It's not just for teens. This is for all children, but it arose in me through the class that I had with the teen group. And this is an aspect of the everyone homeschools topic that I feel it needs to be put front and center. So it has to do with, and there's no main lesson for this. It's embedded in main lessons, but this is something surrounding all your interactions. How can we guide and hold space for our children in such a way that every single day they have something to look forward to? So the topic is really looking forward. And it doesn't mean not being in the present. It's actually the opposite of that. You're in the present with this imagination of um, engagement, something. It does. You've all seen it with your children. You'll tell them, we're going to do this. And they are in their moment, in that present. They are so excited, whether it's to go on a family vacation or the meal that you're preparing or the dessert that's going to follow the meal. The capacity for looking forward to something is one of the most health-giving daily activities that every human needs. Children get it naturally, but it can sometimes be thwarted by too much rhythm. By rhythm, I mean too overscheduling, and brick and mortar schools can actually take that out of children. So they're born with that. You'll see them very naturally come forward with this excitement that is originally theirs, but it is somehow inspired by the connection they have with you as their parents. So watch this every day and see what the difference is in your child when they have something to look forward to versus just an average day where that isn't something that you present. They'll sometimes tell you what they're looking forward to, but oftentimes they will benefit greatly from your invitation. I discovered that as a class teacher, how important it was. And in my eighth grade, my first eighth grade class that I graduated, I developed this rhythm on the Friday of the last block, the completion of this block, we would complete on a Friday, start a new block on a Monday. And they began to, this was in the days when we had more freedom in Waldorf schools. So you didn't have to publish in advance all of your block rotation, like you're going to start this block on this day and so forth. That's why many of you know in our consultations that you've had with me, I always said this could be 3 or 4 weeks. And it might be nice to follow with this block, but you may want to follow with this block. I want you to be free. I want you to be intuitive. I want you to see, well, we actually need another week of astronomy, or we need 1 week less of botany. Whatever it is, you'll be able to measure it. So at the close of the block, I would always begin to tell a story that would lead into what the next block was going to be. And since I had this practice with the student, they really looked forward to the last day of whatever block we had, because they would also get to witness, without knowing what it was going to be, something really, really excited about. So so this one, I'll never forget this one, the end of our block, it was in history, because there's a lot of history in the eighth grade. Those of you that are doing eighth grade history, you'll see it's rich. There's a lot. And in the present days, present times, it's even more important to tell stories about other people and other times. So we're at the close of that block, and and then at the end of the school day, so this is when I would bring it. It was, 3 o'clock or something, 2:30. So I've been noticing that you have been so filled with this energy. I would say this energy that is so impassioned. It's almost stormy. I can feel like sometimes you bring this energy to school that has this power that is almost, I almost feel it as wind from you. And there, I could see your interactions with each other. Sometimes it's really sunny and beautiful. Other times it's cloudy, but often it is raging and stormy, and you get upset with one another and everything. So, because I can see this is what's going on inside of you, we are going to study exactly how this happens in outside of us on Earth. And we're going to study about storms. We're going to study about hurricanes with these 100-mile-an-hour winds where at the center it's perfectly calm. And we're going to study. And so I started bringing the intro to the study of weather, meteorology. That's what our block was going to be Monday. And I was just watching them getting so excited what we were going to study next. And I related it because I believe in doing that when the children are older to bring to consciousness why it's coming up at this time. So, and that is why we bring it. They're right in the middle of adolescence to be able to get a sense of um, the macrocosm, what's going on outside of them, and how they can relate to it inside. And just that one picture, and they loved hearing about and studying tornadoes and hurricanes, but to hear about the eye at the center of the storm where it was completely peaceful, that set them up for this experience of paradox that I constantly return to as they were in their adolescence. It's the most important part of adolescent teaching is paradox. So when you're able to bring that into your parenting and your homeschooling through modeling, and you're able to bring things that seem to be opposite and yet happening at the same time. They've always had that experience. Um, Always. I remember being in England visiting a homeschooling family, and the boy was 4 years old, and his mother was denying what he wanted at that time. I think it was a chocolate chip cookie. I don't remember the specifics, but he was upstairs in his room and he leaned over the rail and said, "I want this." And I said, "No, you can't have it right now." And he went into the storm. "I hate you. I hate you. I hate you." And he was so upset. And he was being honest with his feelings. "I hate you so much," and started screaming and crying in the windows bedroom, closed the door. And we were meeting, we were having tea, and she didn't react. A half hour later, so he came downstairs and came over and started hugging her and saying, uh, he had forgotten about the cookie and she said, his name was Owen, and said, "Owen, do you still hate me?" And he looked at almost with this confusion, said, "No, Mama, I love you." And so it's at that time, you wouldn't bring it to his consciousness. But if this happens with your 13-year-old, or your 14-year-old, even your 12-year-old, you want to bring it to their consciousness. We have conflicting feelings often. Love and hate can happen at the exact same time. They're not mutually exclusive. It's truly the place for the non-binary thinking. We need to realize that we have to hold space for the confusion that surrounds us in our feeling life. And when you begin to talk to your children about that, when they're 12, 13, 14, even younger in some small ways. You are bringing an aspect of homeschooling that is so powerful, so important, and will prepare them for the confusion surrounding relationships with their friends, with their first crushes and romantic partners and so forth. We're always faced with the confusion of our feelings. And it's not just feelings. There is the non-binary approach in thinking about aspects beyond the senses, where we are really pulled in different directions, both being accurate at the same time. I want to study this and I want to study that. I want to be a lawyer and I want to be a surfer. I want to go to all of these kinds of, I remember being 16, I wanted to study every religion. Every time I studied a religion, I remember first meeting Sufism and finding this is so powerful. And I was raised in a Jewish family. And then I started going to churches to discover what was alive in Christian churches. And so I had this connection to Islam through Sufi. And then I got, I was introduced to Buddhism and I started going to this Buddhist temple. And I loved them all, and no one told me I had to choose one. I was able to um, have have the impact and the influence of these great teachings in wisdom and just let them stand for what they were. I didn't have, it's not one or the other. And that's what I mean by non-binary, where it's either this or that. In our experience with religion, with work, with love, with income streams, with there's so much that brings us wanting to connect places. I want to live here and I want to live there. And to have children recognize that, especially at a young age, you don't have to make such choices. You can actually have what seems to be completely opposite experiences. And you could both study to be a doctor and an artist. You can do that. My dentist got a BFA in fine art and then went to dental school. And he decided that he would be a dentist who would practice art in his dentistry. I mean, there's ways to to open up our thinking, to allow for the multiplicity of our experiences. And when you begin to do that with your children in your conversations, in your modeling, they then have so much more to look forward to. They can look forward to exploring you don't have to just choose one place to live. You could go over, all the places that we take you. They as a child on trips, they conjure up in you this joy at what can be offered there. And when you choose to live in one particular place, it's because it's your primary place. It brings so much joy to you that that's where you always want to be. But there may be other places that you visit every single year or months, every few months, that also bring another kind of joy to you that's different. So all of this comes into your homeschooling, and you can bring it alive in the subjects. But it's really what you're modeling. And how does that help prepare children to look forward to something? You are looking forward to something as their parent. You engage with them empathically and in actuality with what is enlivening them, what is inspiring them, what is bringing forth their greatest joy and celebration. And so you'll find your ways to do it, but that's actually a key that very few people talk about in parenting or homeschooling, that your guidance and joining your child in this journey, in this adventure towards something every day is going to be the greatest nutritional element that you're providing them. It's not, and it actually has a physical correlate too. So we can't measure it nutritionally or physically, but it lives in our soul and it comes forward and you can just see it in the engagement. Does that make sense? It's actually alchemical. I have one dear friend who describes herself as daddy's girl. And so I wanted to find out whether, and he lives overseas. So she doesn't get to see him that often. But she's planning trips and she does all of this stuff to do with him. So I wanted to find out what he did educationally, kind of, with her growing up as a parent. She was not homeschooled, but I believe parenting is homeschooling. And I found out that it was really, really mixed. His discipline came out of anger, to where she was actually um, um, hit sometimes, and she had to experience his anger and violence and things like that. So I was so confused. I said, how? But there was another aspect that actually um, almost, I mean, I don't think it can ever remedy violence completely, but it remedied it to such a degree that she has this warmth towards him that he took her on trips and engaged her with this interest and this love so constantly that her feelings for her father are much stronger than they are for her mother, who never harmed her. So it was a confusing thing, but it also helped me to see exactly how powerful interest, attention, engagement is as children become adults and they look back on what really matters to them. Any thoughts? This is supposed to be a little bit of a conversation. So I would love it if you had some comments or thoughts and you would help by bringing them forward. Be brave.
I have something that I can say.
Yes.
um, I was coaching some athletes a few weeks ago, and I noticed that they were like zombies. We were doing jujitsu, which is supposed to be fun, we were doing some drills, and they were so just. I was explaining it over and over, and I felt like they just were not getting it, and they were just zombies. So I went home and revamped it, and then we started each practice. We start each practice now with a game, and um, to, oh, there we go. We started each practice with a game, and it was now the kids are just so excited to be at practice and so much more engaged, and they're actually learning all of the drills better. And I think that being able to look forward to coming to practice and be with their friends and play games actually is helping to facilitate their learning a lot.
Yes. Any other comments? This is exactly what I was talking about. You have to sensitize yourself to see the impact on the little things that you bring, which is what Julia was just saying. You have to recognize. Now, somebody wrote in the chat, was it Gayatri? I didn't look at it yet. How do you balance looking forward to something that's going to happen in the near future and encouraging being in the present moment in the now? Oh yeah, that's beautiful. That's talking about, I mean, that's paradox. That's the non-binary. It's like, how can you be present and still looking forward? Anybody have a thought on that, Hannah?
Yeah. The idea of doing what makes you happy or what brings you joy is so important for, I think, the longevity of whatever you're going to be in, whether it's a classroom teacher or homeschool, that if you are doing the things that are bringing you joy, that joy is coming through in those lessons. And hopefully, it's not all the time, that can be something that the children can pick up on as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Other thoughts? We're so used to dividing up everything. We think that if we're looking forward, we must not be present. We're in the future. But we're also, and this is what I would bring to encourage the imagination of some of our teens. We're actually also time travelers. So we can be in the present, imagining the future, but we're fully in the present. And yet the future has already begun just a little bit through our imagination. So it could be as simple as the boy I was talking about, Owen, where his mom said you could have your cookie. In England, they call them biscuits. You could have it after dinner. After dinner is like, it's not even for a 4-year-old. It's not in the realm of, I mean, that's, you may as well say in your next life. I mean, it's just, the only thing that's important for a 4-year-old is what's happening right now. But as we get older, we can learn to hold space for what's coming from the future towards us. And in that moment, you can be looking forward to, almost feeling drenched by what's going to happen next. This is a great capacity to bring to your child, to not need instant gratification, but rather to have the imagination that this is what's coming forward towards me in the near future, on Monday, tomorrow, next week. Looking forward to a trip is so beautiful. And so it's in the present, you could be researching the place that you're going to go while looking forward to being there. I mean, there's so many different elements of this looking forward. But too often we think about looking forward as the big trip or the big event. I'm talking about looking forward to the walk you're going to be taking, or looking forward to the song you're about to sing, looking forward to the lunch you'll be preparing together. And all of that has to do with your engagement with your child, with recognizing that and communicating to them how much you love them and how you cannot wait to be able to, whatever it is you're going to do, prepare lunch together. Because when I make lunch with you, it tastes so much better. And we're going to be doing this, 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 and this. Whatever it is, the smallest thing looking forward to is so much fun. And when you prepare them, and each day they have this habit of looking forward to whatever is going, even if it's just something that they get to have maybe you prepare a bath every night for your child. They get to live, I can't wait to light the candle and tell you a story about your bath. And you just remind them that that's going to be happening. Then they get into, when they're really young, when they're 4, 5, 6, they get into the experience of rhythm, of this is what happens at night, this is what happens at day, this is what happens on Mondays. We're going to bake bread every Tuesday. Can't wait. This next Tuesday, we're going to be baking bread with raisins in it, and it tastes so phenomenal. So you add an element of what would engage you so that they can feel that energy towards that. What do you think? Mirka, you have anything? You're smiling a lot, which is good.
Well, I love it. I love it. It's where I find difficulties is I was raised by a mom who was quite controlling. So I am learning to allow the time for kids to do it in their own time and not be perfectionist. And so that's where I meet with resistance in myself. And I am reparenting myself, reminding myself that it's about connection and not perfectionism. And stay in the present moment, not rush. So it's a lot of learning for me. And I'm smiling because it's all true, whatever you're saying, you know. It's just, it's sometimes it's very hard in a daily life. So I'm learning a lot through this journey. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it is hard. I shouldn't at all. It gets easier when you develop it as a practice, though, when you get used to it. And especially we have to overcome the way we were raised when we were children. You know, like you said, with controlling parents, with a kind of a discipline or an expectation that didn't encourage connection, celebration, joy, or only on occasion. But we can do that. We can overcome what happened to us. We want something more for our own children. Look, you're going to be getting the benefit of watching your child smile so often because of that kind of engagement, that kind of leadership that you're bringing. Um, if they don't get it from you, especially in today's world, um, with so much on social media, with Snapchat, Instagram, so forth, there is this, um, they end up having those needs for looking forward met by something that has nothing to do with them. And it may not be something that is actually going to happen for them. They go through and scroll down these stories that other people tell of fantastical things going on in life, whether it's parties or, you know, just getting rich or doing all of these sorts of things that really have nothing to do with your child. But so many people become transfixed by what they get on social media. And once, you know, it's one thing when you have a pretty solid control, I guess, over their environment when they're younger. Well, they're going to become teens and they will have a phone and they will have friends. They will have access to those sorts of things. And the the vaccine, so to speak, for that is what you bring into their soul life through the sorts of things I'm talking about, looking forward, connection. That is going to strengthen them so they won't be so entranced by all of those. They will have had a more meaningful connection with the world surrounding them already. And so it just won't have that impact. So it's important. It's really important. So does anybody have any, can you think of anything that your children have been looking forward to that you've helped midwife? Yes, Catherine.
Yes, actually, it's funny you say that. So Elizabeth is 5th grade, Elliot is 7th grade, and I think we've been doing live ed now 5 years, maybe no, maybe yeah, 5, 6 years, something like that. So, but I tend to be more disciplined with like I don't like to leave lessons hanging or unfinished. So sometimes I do feel like I push them so, too hard. Um, and I feel like the last year or two, I took an Ayurveda class, a year-long Ayurveda class, and it actually helped me a ton to integrate, not to be structured and so disciplined, but more how to be a thriving person. And so for some reason, thriving, that word has stuck with me now for 2 years, how to be alive and thriving and not to be like in a state of dis-ease or anxiety or stress. So an example of just this week, our lilacs are all in bloom. And so yesterday, Elizabeth were finishing up Egypt. And I just said to her, let's do something joyful this afternoon. How about we pick the lilacs and we make our homemade lilac simple syrup for lemonade and for like her icing on her cookies. And she was so thrilled. And she's leaving for a tournament right now. But I was going to say, we didn't even get to make the syrup yet. She has a soccer tournament about 3 hours away. And she's so looking forward to that. But the fact that we sat there, I don't know if you know lilac flowers, but they're quite tiny and you have to pick them off very carefully. And we spent several hours. I have to do another cup while she's gone, but I know I'll enjoy it doing it on my own, or my son might help me. But just little things like that, picking the lilacs together to with the goal of making various things that we infuse it in honey, and it was just so joyful for her, and she really looked forward to it. And she actually was like, I want to get through my hieroglyphs and do this, and then let's do the lilacs. And it was such simple joy, just simple joy, which made it so beautiful. And for my son as a teenager right now, I'm feeling like he needs to move a lot right now. And for the first time ever, we tried dropping into the local middle school. And he just said to me multiple times, I want to try it for the tennis team. I want to try it for the tennis team. And I'm like, I don't know anything about dropping into local school. And he ended up making the team. And now his thing to look forward to is, can you take me up to the tennis courts to go play?
Yeah.
And it's so good for both of us just to go and have that time together. And then he talks about his swing, and he's so detailed and technical of what he did with his wrist and his grip. And that, just seeing that joy and having and feeling that connection is such a reminder. It was like I was meant to be on today's call, because you are reminding me I have to do this every single day. I really feel like I need to do it every single day, because I'm tend to lean more toward, let's try to get through this part of the lesson today. And so it's been so healthy, nourishing, and I think we're all thriving more as I've began integrating that thought process in more into our daily practice and our daily life.
Such a beautiful story. Thank you so much, Catherine. I was imagining your son holding the tennis racket as you were talking about it, and it's just such a they are so available for joy. They are waiting to be guided to engage with every aspect of their life. There's something to bring. But and don't at all worry about how everybody's going to be different regarding the intensity that they bring to the academic aspect, completing their books, or doing, you'll find the right way. There isn't one way to do that. And it sounds like your daughter has, I'm going to finish my hieroglyphics. She's taken that on. She's looking forward to the completion of something. We look forward to so much. And that, when you are aware of it and you bring your perception of your child into your consciousness in such a way, then you begin to see the how powerful those outcomes are. I know, I've done this with my goddaughter is just turning, and some of you know her. She's just turning 16. And every time I talk to her, every time I visit, I'm always talking about what we're going to do. Whether it's in an hour from now, we're going to go hit balls on the golf course. We're going to go have tea and chat. We're going to do, I've got one in advance of going to the East Coast with her. But one of the things that came up for her that she told her mother was, and this was a few years ago, Mama, whenever I'm with Rainbow, I always feel so happy. It's that. It's not that. It's, yes, we have a unique, deep relationship, but it's also what I bring in this engagement with life. This is what children need to learn how to be happy. It's not the accumulation of things. It's the engagement with life, with people, with animals, with their food, with everything. It's their engagement. It's their connection. And those can be specified differently in so many different, formats. There is the, the connection that they have with the Egypt block. There's the connection they have with tennis. There's the connection they have with their friends, with you. There's a lot going on that need development and attention. But that's what it all boils down to, is engagement, connection. And when you are helping them to look forward to something, it's because you're acknowledging them. You're acknowledging what you see lives in them and shines so brightly. That kind of acknowledgement affirms in them that the world is good and that they are loved and they are safe. So we always want that. And I'm just giving it a name for you in terms of looking forward and connecting, so that you can begin to practice that and develop a new habit in your homeschooling, whether your children are in school or being tutored or it's fully you, doesn't matter. You will have this opportunity to interact with them in such a way. Now, a big part of what interests me right now, again, I've been so inspired by the teen group that I've been leading this last month. I constantly am, and this is much more for high school, I'm constantly wondering about what depth is possible for our adolescents to bring into their relationships with their friends primarily, but also as they begin to have a romantic awakening too. Romantic awakenings occur well ahead of sexual awakenings. There is this kind of imagination, sometimes even as young as first grade and kindergarten, about being a princess or a prince or a king and a queen, and living in a far away place and having children. And, friends will talk about with each other often, and even play games surrounding it. My big concern is that's fine when they're young. Now they're in adolescence, and they're either, if they're in a school, public or a private school, they are surrounded by peers. Even if you've controlled access to the internet, they have access to this other world that awakens in them something from a very, I guess, harsh, accelerated manner that doesn't prime them for the depth and the sweetness that true connection will bring. And so the advent of teen porn, for example, it's literally everywhere. And I get reports from parents with teens that this is such an element, and how are we going to meet this? And even if it's not the porn, there is this whole over sexualized experience that they get from people in school or others that are really just they might have good intentions. They have fear about STDs, pregnancies, and so forth. So they're rushed into this world without the experience or the guidance into the depth of connection that includes not just who you might fall in love with, but the destiny of relationships. So this has taken up my consciousness for high school kids. Like, how are we going to till the soil, prepare the ground, so to speak, for what can await them? And before, where there is this possibility of more traumatic experiences or exposures that could develop different kinds of habits that don't include this engagement, celebration, looking forward, all of that. And so this is something that I'm sitting with. It's not really what I thought I'd be talking about today, but it was somehow in the moment. I hope it's okay. Many of you have younger children, and so it's not really in your consciousness right now. But when I'm thinking about everyone homeschools, we also, as they get older into adolescence, we have to be able to bring to them a certain level of depth regarding connections that they're going to have that are romantic or sexual. There has to be a preparation. And so to me, the preparation is literally in the engagement they have with the world up until that time. They will be so used to recognizing the subtle things. Like what you were saying, Catherine, with the making syrup out of lilac and the lilac blossoms so tiny and what you have to do. And there's so much subtle involved in that what they're going to be gleaning is being able to see the more nuanced. They'll even be able to taste it. And so this is building up to what I'm talking about. In the 3rd grade, I always recommend and encourage families to create soups and cookies and everything that have subtle differences in flavor, and to begin to educate your child on noticing the nuanced. Can you taste the cinnamon or the nutmeg that we put in this batch of cookies and it wasn't in the first batch? Can you notice the flavor of ginger that we put into this soup that we didn't put into that soup? All of those kinds of things you begin to help them discern from the earliest age. I mean, in the 5th grade, you mentioned 5th grade, you know, the botany is one of the most important parts of 5th grade, where you're discerning between the different families of plants and the lilies and the roses and the slight difference in character and smells and all of that. You want to encourage, and that helps them to look forward to the next thing that you're going to be discerning. You know, the different flavors of honey that are created from different blossoms. I mean, you can get that discerning, and they'll look forward to that. You're going to be doing that tomorrow, and they can't wait. And because there's a challenge, but it's also something they can meet. It's powerful. That kind of discernment is what's going to serve them as they evaluate connections they have with friends when they're 16 and 15, and be able to say, this is a friend that truly sees me, and this is a friend who doesn't see me at all, but I'm useful to them. Whatever it is, I can help them with their homework, or whatever. There's countless ways to, but how do we lead if we just spring this on them when they're 16 and they're friends, and there's nothing that was built up to it, it'll be harder to access. If they're able to recognize that this is just the following from all the other learning that they've done, then it will resonate with them. So you're discerning all the time in your teaching from the very, very beginning. And now the discernment when they get older is going to be, in some ways, the hardest, because no one talks, and this is what came up in our teen group. I need to talk to you, Hannah, about this because it's the direction we're going. I want your wise counsel. They let me know, no one talks to them in school. And parents, it's a little awkward as they get to this age, but there were a few people in our teen group that were in school. And there aren't classes given to talk about how you build relationships, how to recognize what is the basis for attraction? Is it because they have a particular look that has been programmed in through so much Instagram stories or movies or something? Or is there something behind attraction and attractiveness that they need to become more aware of? And as we begin those kinds of conversations, it's something that you will feel more confident in being able to bring. So it's a little deeper of a place than I thought we were going to go. I hope it's okay. Maybe it would be the basis for another live stream as we're coming to the end of this one. What do you think?
You said in a different salon or a different Zoom call, I remember, you had said that one of the questions that you asked was, how do I know what a good friend is? And then you turned it inward and said, how do I know if I'm a good friend? And that really resonated with me because I think even for myself as an adult, it brings it back to helping the child understand and know who they are. And that can then really guide them as they step out into the world and they don't always have access to me and being able to ask me questions. I really appreciated that. Just that one little question. And I ask it to them now all the time in different ways.
Thank you, Julia. That's so important. I mean, yeah, who are we in this world? What are we modeling? What are we modeling in our own relationships to the children too? Those are all questions that we have to ask and become more conscious of. Because as we welcome their journey through these different stages of development, the later ones are more challenging. We're not really prepared as teachers for that in the same way. And so I just think that we need to, in our consciousness, begin to embrace. Yes, Brigitte?
Yes, hi Rainbow. Hi everyone. Yeah, so I found everything you've said very interesting, but I was just thinking of how, for instance, my daughters who are now both in the adolescent age or preteen, 19, they usually are very, we'll have a lot of conversations and they'll give me input on, oh, this person is your friend because you share this in common, or this person is your friend because you're both interested in helping other people. So it's like they're watching my relationship with other people and what binds us together, how we solve problems. And so we have discussion about those things, and they'll always relate it back to how they behave with their friends. And I think it's really helpful because they see it, but of course, then they're also super critical, and I have to be open to whatever they are saying. But I think it's good because they see it happening, and then sometimes they're like, "Oh, mommy, this wasn't a good idea," and to just keep the communication flowing. And just lately too, we've been having discussions about puberty and the changes and the emotional changes especially. And there was a book we were reading which was very interesting. It's a book by a South African white gentleman that we are trying to interview very soon, and he basically writes a boy's part, that's a teenager, and a girl's part, and then they cross paths and how the story evolves. And for my 12-year-old, she found it very intense and just didn't want to continue because it had quite a lot of sexual topics and it made her uncomfortable. So we had to stop for, I think, almost 2 months. And then now we started picking it up again. And then she became comfortable. So there's so many discussions we had because of the book. I could just see that emotionally she was now more mature to be able to handle the conversations. And so that book was a very good entryway into discussing a lot of different things. And so we continued on that. But it was interesting to see how she had suddenly grown and adjusted, and the older sister giving all the advice to her, and also talking about her friendships and what made her uncomfortable with her friends. And suddenly having to, Islamically also be less involved with her male friends from before, and how she's found a female friendship and companions. So that was interesting. And she was like guiding or talking her sister through it.
That's fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing that. This is delicate, these subjects. There, again, there isn't, I just want to raise it so that you can begin to think about that. When you're talking about, Brigitte, that you have friends because of certain interests, and so they have friends because of certain interests. That's true, and yet only one element. And so one of the things that's a level of attraction. Wow, that person, so that's a level of attraction that has nothing to do with appearance, right? It's important for them to see attraction isn't just physical. Attraction comes out of an inner seeing, a perception of what lives. And to bring that into their consciousness is really, really important. So it's not just, let's say you have an interest in a certain sport. And so but there'll be other people that you play with or engage with, but one you'll want to do more. They're maybe more attractive to you because of the intensity they bring to their engagement with that sport, bringing that into their consciousness, like why, like you said, so why do you like to play with this person and not that person, and so forth. So it comes out of, and I would translate it into attraction, so they begin to hear that more. But then there's also something that can't be as easily analyzed, where it has to do with their what's the right word? Their well, if you tell stories in history, which is one of the reasons I love history so much, when you're telling the stories and relationships come up, I think in our live education, we have in the 7th grade, we have the story of the Spanish conquistadors coming to Mexico and meeting the native people. And in one, we actually, it's with Cortez, falling in love with one of the natives, and where love leads in a way. If you can talk about that, the same thing in our 8th grade with Ben Franklin and others, if you can talk about where there is a connection that somehow was really important in their growth and development. And it's not just romantic love. There's also with friendships and connections that people have as colleagues that come out in history. So when you bring attention not to just that this happened, but what was so special about what these two people did together or saw in each other, the trusted advisor, wherever it was, that there was a special connection that really made possible these incredible advances. So that's another way that isn't as conscious, like you have a similar interest. It's rather you have this connection that goes beyond the easy to establish, one that we might call destiny. We see that oftentimes we see it on a regular basis with synchronicity. Like Catherine was talking about, it's a matter of synchronicity that we're bringing this up today, given to what you were experiencing with your own teaching in the 5th grade. So synchronicity is when you experience that, and hopefully we do on a regular basis, we feel like we're in flow, like there's part of the world as it's unfolding that's resonating with how we personally are unfolding or how our life is unfolding. All of that is really, it's rewarding, and it gives us faith, again, that there is this greater and deeper wisdom, and we love that. So when you enlarge that and look at, as this gets bigger and bigger, like for a lifetime friend, or a life partner, or a business, or a place, or something like that, you begin to feel the blessing of destiny in that way. You want to prepare your children to welcome such experiences, and you do it in small ways early on. But this is what is key, I feel, before they become sexual, to at least have a knowledge or a resonance of the possibility of the depth of connection. Does that make sense? It's a tough one. And again, I think it needs more development, but I'll try to do more in the future on it. Any final yes, Kate?
Yeah, I was also thinking, my kids always find it very interesting also that I have very different kind of friendships. I mean, people that normally you wouldn't think I'd have much in common with, or I couldn't really identify with. So they always laugh at me at how many different kinds of people I can talk to and make connections with. And it's also interesting to see how they now can look at themselves and realize that there's always something you'll find in common with people, but also I can see they're learning how to pull back when they feel exhausted and preserve their energy. And that's also okay. Because my daughter can tell me, yeah, had a nice time with this person, but at this point I think I had enough, and I need to have my quiet time and detox a little bit, because like the person's personality maybe is overwhelming me. And I like the fact that they're thinking through it and they're analyzing it. And I think it's good that they have their rest days and move themselves out of that, because I don't think at that age I was that conscious about it yet.
Yeah.
And that's nice to look at, because you're homeschooling and you're with them.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because this could be a good place to leave. You were bringing to them, or she was bringing to you, the experience of she had enough. It was, so really that's representing the importance of balance in one's life, right? And going back to 3rd grade, and I love this little experiment or recipe change. They think they really, really like sweets. So you bake cookies, and they do like cookies. It's great. So they, you make a recipe and double the sugar on one and do the normal amount on the other. They think they like sweet, but they'll taste, oh, that's too sweet. This isn't really what I want. I want something in balance, the right amount of sweet and bitter, or whatever it is. So they think they like this person, but if they have this person too much, too many hours at one time, it sours them. It begins to not feel so good. And the way that I would bring that is, I wouldn't, again, if they're used to binary thinking, okay, I can't be friends with that person anymore. But if you say, try having just an hour with that person or just doing one activity and see how you feel. And then don't assume that you're going to spend the rest of your life with that person or have an overnight or go on a trip. Helping them to see that the balance that they experienced with cookies and that's not the only place, but the rhythm where you've got just that right. I mean, we talk about it in the fairy tales all the way back to is it too hot? Is it too cold? Or is it just right? We want them to have the experience of extremes that work in a safe way, that work, don't work, and then how to become wise enough, strong enough, and take the initiative to be an architect of their own friendships, of their own love relationships, of their own life, to make sure they achieve balance. It's one of the best, most important aspects of homeschooling that you can bring. If the looking forward becomes out of balance because there is an escape from what is immediate, that needs to be tended to, so that here's a great paradox. They learn to look forward to what is happening right now. So just sit with that. I'm going to leave you there, unless there's any closing comments that anybody would like to make. I'm grateful for the opportunity. You all inspire me. I feel like when I prepare to present in some way and to hold space for parents whom I really appreciate, something greater than me can come through. And that's what I always hope for, and it's what I look forward to. And I felt like it was happening today too. So I just want to acknowledge that and thank you all. And this will be posted on our website in the next few days in case you want to go back over what was discussed. We have past live stream presentations on our site that you can view as well. Thank you all. Bye-bye.